Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, once again joined by Zepsi. We both do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but we don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. We're just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. Welcome, Zep.
How's it going, Brandon?
It's going good. We have all kinds of stuff to cover, but as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. And that actually brings me to my first point. So we had a fairly big failure of a DEX that we were hoping was going to come to market in the Hedera ecosystem, and that's Lehman Swap. So from what I understand, they had a few of their devs that left the project, and they really couldn't continue. They wanted to return some of the funds, but somehow they messed up their multi-sig and they lost some of those signatures. It strains credulity a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what is going on there. It seems like that would be a little bit negligent, but this brings me to a point that I wanted to make about, what we cover in this space. Mostly we cover things that are being built on Hedera, and they're almost all startups. Even the enterprise things that are being built are like startups within the bigger enterprise. And 90% of startups fail. And if you buy, assets that you think are going to have use in these platforms, and those startups go under, those assets are going to become useless. And another example is MetaWizards, right? A game that was going to be built in the space, and they were selling in-game assets. And just like if you were to have an arcade that was supposed to be built in your neighborhood, and you were to buy a bunch of tokens beforehand, if that arcade doesn't get built, those tokens are going to be useless. Same thing here. Now, I do think that the MetaWizards program has been taken over by another team, but still, 90% chance of failure. There's also going to be all kinds of rugs in this space where people do nefarious things and things that are immoral or even illegal. Now, that kind of stuff we hate, but we also want to encourage those that want to build something and bring something of value to the market. We want to encourage them. I know we've talked about Nassim Taleb in the past, and he thinks there should be an entrepreneurial day, not just to celebrate the entrepreneurs that succeed, but even more so to celebrate the entrepreneurs that fail, because those are the people that go out there, they put their neck out, and they try to build something. And that's something I really want to celebrate for all the people that are trying to bring value to the Hedera network and try to build fun and entertaining products for our ecosystem. Do you have any thoughts, Zep?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you've got to conduct your due diligence. We're all firm believers in the Hedera network, and we're firm believers in the tech and the governing council and all these incredible things. But that isn't always going to mean that the highest standard of projects are built on us. And the same goes for every single chain. So like you said, just having that due diligence, having the expectation, or at least the expectation that, money might not come back, I think is always important to guard yourself as an investor, especially in a space as nascent as Web3. We know the technology is here. We know the technology is here to stay, but it doesn't mean every instance of that technology in use is going to stay around for the long term.
And a lot of times you shouldn't think of yourself as an investor. You should think of yourself as a consumer, and a consumer buying assets that are in these startups that might not come to fruition. I mean, we have that legalese in the beginning for entertainment or educational purposes only. We're just trying to cover everything in the space and make sure everybody knows what's going on. We're not giving you investment advice. Same thing in the disclaimer in the beginning. I say that the coverage should not imply endorsement. We can't, because we try to be fairly comprehensive and at least cover every vertical where things are being built in the Hedera ecosystem, but we don't have the time to do the due diligence on every single one of these projects. And even if we did, if everything seemed like it was good and they would have good product market fit, they still may fail because of just the statistics in the startup space. All right, so we wanted to start off on that. So a little bit of a low note in the Hedera ecosystem, but there is plenty of good stuff. And I want to start out with Hedera going to Congress. Nilmini, she went and actually testified before Congress. I haven't seen very many layer ones that have gotten that opportunity, but she did a fantastic job. So take a look.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson, Ranking Member Caraveo, members of the subcommittee for inviting me to testify. As today is Take Your Child to Work Day, my husband has brought 2 of our 3 daughters here today. I am Nilmini Rubin, Head of Global Policy for the Hedera Governing Council. a decentralized multi-stakeholder governing body that establishes policies for the open source Hedera network. Hedera is a fast and green distributed ledger or public blockchain. Essentially, Hedera provides a layer of trusted internet infrastructure for applications with real-world impact. What we call the internet is a set of computers talking to each other through open protocols. These protocols have evolved over time to enable additional features and capabilities that benefit society. Initially, protocols enabled only read-only text, or Web 1. Then they enabled posting content and conducting commerce, or Web 2. And now they enable personal control of data, or Web 3. Public blockchains are Web 3 platforms for other applications and are operated by a network of independent computers, or nodes. Now, these nodes do not fund their operations by showing advertisements or selling subscriptions. Instead, nodes are paid by users directly through fees, like water, electricity. Node fees are typically tiny and frequent, with hundreds or thousands of transactions processed per second. It is not possible to use the traditional financial system to send fractions of a penny quickly, efficiently, and globally. To solve this problem, public blockchains use a digital asset, or cryptocurrency, to rapidly transfer value between users and node operators. The cryptocurrency serves as a fuel on which the network runs. For example, in March, the Hedera network processed over 1 billion transactions. Each transaction cost between a tenth and a hundredth of a penny and was paid in the Hedera network's cryptocurrency called HBAR. The key takeaway here is that public blockchains need digital assets to operate. The ability of blockchains to provide trusted and time-stamped records enables people to store, track, and monitor data in new and powerful ways. 3 examples of products running on the Hedera network include the Dovu marketplace that allows farmers to generate additional income from actions like changing farming techniques and planting additional crops. Their actions are tokenized as carbon credits to fund carbon-reducing projects. The second one is Atma.io, built by Avery Dennison. It helps brands reduce waste across the supply chain for over 28 billion items. It has both economic and environmental benefits. And third, Everywhere. It monitors vaccine cold chain storage across the supply chain and picks up on any irregularities before administering those vaccines to patients, keeping patients safe. U.S. network and market infrastructure providers need a complete roadmap towards compliance. The current U.S. regulatory environment provides no clear path to compliance for digital assets, leaving blockchains with 2 choices: either stop operating in the U.S. or hope U.S. policy will come through before the enforcement of misaligned regulations. To protect consumers, enable innovation, and promote competition, we recommend Congress pass legislation creating an activities-based framework to regulate digital assets based on the nature of the transaction. First, Congress should provide a definition of and delineation between digital commodity and digital security, or state when a digital asset is neither. Second, Congress should empower the CFTC to regulate certain digital commodity activities, such as operating a centralized spot marketplace. To extend U.S. leadership and competitiveness, Congress should establish digital asset policy that supports the use of public blockchains. The rest of the world is recognizing the potential of blockchains. Other jurisdictions, such as Dubai, Europe, Singapore, and the United Kingdom, are creating digital asset regulatory certainty. The United States risks shutting out businesses that rely on digital assets to operate, risks shutting out the ability to regulate the industry, and most importantly, risks removing the American people's access to the efficiency, transparency, and data storage tools that the rest of the world will be using to their competitive advantage. Thank you for focusing on policy for the next wave of digital innovation.
Very well said.
I'd like to further explore with you the practical uses of digital assets and blockchain technology. In your testimony, you talk about how several organizations are using Hedera network to improve their businesses. Can you elaborate on a project or two who utilize your network to accomplish daily or commercial activities?
Thank you, Chairman, for this question. I included a few use cases in the testimony. One was Dovu, which allows farmers to tokenize the work that they're doing. So let's say they have a regular crop and they plant additional flowers around the edge that has different environmental benefits and carbon benefits. They can tokenize that and sell it as an offset. They can, if they decide to drill instead of tilling, they can tokenize that changed farming technique and make money on it. It's really fascinating. Another one that I thought was fun was Tune FM. And it's kind of like Spotify, but on the blockchain. So it allows artists to get paid immediately. Like as soon as someone's listening to it, then that tiny amount of money goes to them. They don't have to wait. They don't have to prove there's a certain number of listeners. It's clearly on the blockchain. This number of people listen to your song, and this is how much you get, and per amount of time that the song was played. Another that really moved me was with AVC Global and medical value chain. And what it does is it uses Hedera to authenticate pharmaceuticals. So you can track and make sure that that pharmaceutical is legitimate. It turns out that counterfeit pharmaceuticals, it doesn't just cost companies money when they're used. It endangers people's lives because these pharmaceuticals are not real. They're just amazing use cases that we haven't even begun to explore.
Mrs. Rubin, last week the European Parliament passed their crypto asset legislative framework known as MiCA. I heard from several crypto companies that due to the lack of regulatory clarity, many firms are choosing to domicile their companies in jurisdictions that do have clarity. In addition, a recent study published by the Developer Report reported that the U.S. is continuing to lose its lead in blockchain, going from 40% of the developers globally to 29%. Mrs. Rubin, are you seeing this innovation flight as well? If you are seeing that, how can we reverse that?
Thank you, Mr. Langworthy, for that question. Yes, the flight that you're discussing is real, and it's happening. People are fleeing to jurisdictions with regulatory clarity because they want to know that their businesses are operating within the law and that they can operate fully and that they can make investments that will stand. It's kind of this shocking situation where the United States, which is usually at the forefront of every technology, is now standing back and allowing other jurisdictions to run ahead. And this is not just bad for the businesses themselves, but it's bad for the American consumers because we won't have access to these transformative technologies. Hedera was created by U.S. veterans, people who were teaching at the Air Force Academy. We launched Hedera here in the United States as a global platform. Our firm desire is to make this be a platform from here. But it is very scary and fearful to be working in an environment without regulatory clarity. So the number one thing that you could do is help provide that regulatory clarity.
So again, congratulations to Nilmini for being a great representative for Hedera in front of Congress. I also noticed last week that Coinbase put out like an open letter or a video version of an open letter to the SEC. And I think they did a really good job compared to a lot of the detractors, the crypto detractors out there. I think they represented themselves as the adults in the room, as very mature and thoughtful in that response. But either way, I like to see these leaders in the space taking point and representing the industry well. All right, so let's get into something a little bit more fun. I got a chance to talk to Patrick from the Earthlings team, and he had some really amazing graphics. That's what they do. They just come out with these beautiful graphics. I hope it translates really well into a game. They play the NFT game really well, and those in-game assets that hopefully will come to fruition and be useful in their game later on are always beautiful. But listen to our conversation that we had with Patrick. Patrick, development is full steam ahead there at Earthlings, and I understand that you have some new graphics you might be able to show us. Can we take a look at them?
Yeah, we can. We've been working a lot behind the scenes actually on the build of our game, and one of my favorite scenes are the floating islands, and that's what we want to show now. They're quite hard to reach, but with an airship you'll get there quite easily. And the thing is, what we want to show with these sceneries is that we put in a lot of effort on the look and feel, because that's what we want people to talk about. We want them to continuously have the feeling that they want to explore more and look around the corner, because that will show them already what's to expect of the game. So what we're going to do is build an amazing looking gaming metaverse where for the first time, actually, you feel you own a piece of fantasy like land. So there are many metaverses out there already, of course, but we want people to feel they own really a great, well-designed piece of the game. Like, for instance, if you have ever played Final Fantasy, it's a great game, looks amazing. Can you imagine as a gamer being able to own a piece of that fantasy land? So that's what we're doing. We want to build something really beautiful, and we hope that we can show already with this piece of scenery that people will see what to expect in the future of Earthlings.
Well, Patrick, I was just down there at Consensus, and there were a lot of game builders that came by the booth, and I used Earthlings over and over again as an example of what could be built in our space. But without further ado, let's take a look at some of these new graphics.
Yeah, so it's great to see the Patrick and the team there that are still building. When we look at video games as a whole, so much goes into them. So many different layers to development, to the art, to the marketing, to everything. And for such a small team that the Earthlings team is, they're a startup as well. They've done an excellent job at leveraging all points of their team to really make as big an impact as possible. Like you said, they've done a great job at rallying the community, which is of course completely intrinsic to this industry. They've done a great job on the graphics, and the in-game footage looks fantastic. So like you said, I'm very excited to see where they take us. I'm very excited that they're taking us so closely with their journey, seeing these developments. And I'm sure as they mature, there's only going to be much more there. So very excited to see what the team have.
No question about that. And Messari came out with their Q1 report as well. Do you have any info on that?
Yeah, so the entire ecosystem, i.e. every single service on Hedera has increased this quarter. Of course, we saw the consensus service go completely through the roof. I think yesterday we got 81 million transactions in a day, or something unbelievable. But not only the consensus service, which we know is the lower fees, but of course the lower fees stack up. but also the smart contract service. Our DeFi went up with Pangolin. We've seen, our revenue go up by, I think, 489% quarter on quarter, which is just, brilliant. That is the health metric that a lot of people, especially VCs, look at when assessing the longevity of an ecosystem. Excited to see that what the foundation's been doing, what the Hashgraph Association's been doing, and of course what the team at Swards have been doing is really starting to get that fruition. That is particularly important to understand, is the seeds that have been sowed are now coming to bear fruit. And this industry, anything to do with investing or tech or whatever it is, a lot of what is done is setting these early seeds so that we can see the benefits of them in 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years. And we're seeing the very early stages of that now, and I'm sure that's only going to increase over time. So yeah, patience is definitely a virtue within this ecosystem.
Well, everything seems like it's up and to the right. Average daily transactions have gone from about 3 million transactions per day a year ago to 40 million transactions per day now, and of course it's significantly higher because it's continuing to go up and to the right. But daily active users, we had about 1,500 daily active users a year ago. Now we're up at around 6, so it's going in the right direction, that's for sure. And another thing I wanted to highlight was from Lunar Crush. They have this Galaxy score, which is a proprietary score that is constantly measuring a cryptocurrency against itself with respect to its overall health, quality, and performance of a specific project. And right now, Hedera came in number 2, so that was good to see. We also had the forum launch. Can you tell us about that?
Speaking to Lunar Crush, I think it's just excellent to see that much engagement because, of course, one of the things that are taken into consideration is social media engagement. And Savo, i.e. Parabolic HBAR, has done a great job at reiterating the importance of this engagement, of engaging the hashtags, of engaging HBAR all across Twitter. And I think over the last 2 days, I saw HBAR trending with 27,000 tweets. And when you look at what we were in the last bull run, where, we had this dream, we had the council, we had a community, we never got near those kind of figures. And I think the fact that we're now trending with those staggering statistics in comparison to what it was in a confused market, in a bear market, whatever you want to call it, to see that sort of energy there within our community, I think is a very, very good indicator of what could be to come when the market picks up, when people are more excited, when new capital are looking at real projects of real value. One thing they look at is the community. Of course, they look at the council, the tech, but to see how invigorated our community still is, despite market conditions, I think is a really positive indicator that we can't understate. But beyond that, you said Forum. And so Forum was created by Michael Garber, who is one of the Swards Labs devs, one of the great devs on their team. And he's created what is essentially a decentralized version of, I suppose, Reddit or 4chan or a forum, basically. And so what he's done is he's put everything onto the consensus service. So as this sort of messaging service of an immutable log of messages, he's created this forum whereby you have all sorts of different conversation starters or categories. So, you have, it might be about art, it might be about tech, it might be about general, whatever it is, it's a decentralized platform for users both within and outside our community to have a sort of uncensored conversation. When I say uncensored, it doesn't mean it's not there to like radicalize people or allow, very strong views on either side that verge on, extremism. There are, there's work being done to avoid things like racism and stuff like that. But at the very heart of it is this ability to have a mutable source of truth, an immutable source of conversation whereby people aren't being censored by, biased moderators or anything like that. It's sort of communication for communication's sake. And I'm excited to see this sort of hub emerge there. And I've had some great conversations on there already, and I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm going to try to support it as much as I can myself. Now, last week, we did miss Shark Bites because I was down there at Consensus, but we caught up with Rob again this week, so let's listen in. So, of course, Rob, we skipped last week because I was down at Consensus, but it's good to have you back.
Yeah, great to be back, Brandon. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, there certainly is. So I understand that you went to the Consensus conference in some of the really early days. What was it like early on for comparison?
I was there 2014 through 2019, I think, in New York. So New York City started becoming the blockchain week. So New York was putting on a whole week of events, and Consensus was kind of the centerpiece of that. Of course, these were the heady days of the ICOs in 2017. Lines of Lambos outside the conference center. All the moon boys flying in, and the parties were legendary. Of course, Hedera was nowhere to be seen. The craziness of the crypto crowd was amazing. It created that energy, and of course, the ICO boom came and went, and we've had a number of cycles since then as well. I think the core of the intent was there, though, right? So we had early days of blockchain. The Ethereum kind of went live, 2014. So there was a lot of kind of new world discussion around what programmable distributed ledgers could do. Lots of discussion about the big use cases that were going to save the world or change everything. And as we know now, that didn't actually always happen because of the constraints of those first and second generation technologies. But the sentiment was there, the vision, the dreams, and a lot of opium was everywhere to be seen. Towards the end of that, it became a lot more institutionally focused. So, this switch that we've been waiting for into the institutional adoption of blockchain had started. There were a number of government and treasury-based. Fed Reserve turned up for one of the later ones. And so you could start seeing that shift. And then, of course, we had COVID and a few years of pause. And then it springs up again in Austin in Texas. And I think one of your interviews, with Christian said it felt more like a trade show, a software trade show this year. And I think that's the natural transition. Blockchain is technology. It is a network technology, and it's revolutionary, of course, but there's no, it's software businesses that are being built on it. So the trade show kind of effect is inevitable, I think. There's lots of side events still, and I'm sure the parties were still legendary. But what goes on in Texas stays in Texas, right?
Oh yeah, it was a blast. I will say I get a lot of the value out of the event itself, but there's plenty going on the sidelines. There were several events done, including some enterprises. I mean, we had FIS WorldPay do an event. We also had Google do an event, and I'm sure you caught the Google Web3 Accelerator Program announcement last week. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I knew about this. This is something that we had been discussing with Google when I was still at the foundation and responsible for accelerators. And they actually came to us and told us, as council member, that this is one of the things that they were branching out into. Obviously, they had their cloud startup programs, accelerator programs, and they wanted to extend them into Web3. Of course, they were going to come to Hedera, being on the governing council. But they need to kind of retain this blockchain agnosticism to be, all things to all people, which is fine as well. So the foundation is pitching in some prize money, some incentives within those programs, as are a couple of the other chains. So it'd be great to see. I think it's a great sign of the level of adoption that the cloud-based providers are now kind of stepping up to provide all the tooling that enables and will enable Web3 to flourish over the next few years. So really, really keen to see the candidates that are going to go through that accelerator. I mean, we've seen with the likes of Outlier Ventures, with Lumos Labs, and now with Tribe, the accelerators that we've put in place from the foundation. And of course, the Hashgraph Association, where I now work, has been running its Hashgraph Innovation Program for some time now, as you well know, because Twigital is going through it. A very different approach to some of the others. But these accelerators are just that. They're there to take great ideas or great teams, nascent businesses, and supersize them and super speed them into the market. And I think Google is pretty well placed to provide that service as well.
Yeah, I think you're certainly right. The one thing that I pulled away from Google being involved, there's been a lot of people talking about, is Google building on Hedera? We really don't know, but they might take a completely different tack. They might allow hundreds of different teams and developers all to build, and then they figure out what's working and they support those and maybe acquire them. Who knows? But of course, with Twitchell down there, and we were using AWS, and we're certainly willing to use Google Cloud as well, so we're certainly going to try to get involved with that accelerator program as well. So Good. You mentioned the Hashgraph Association and your shift. How has your first month at the association gone?
Oh, it's great. The Hashgraph Association's got some pretty big plans. But I need to stay focused. The first month has, I've not really missed a step. I've been spending a lot of time, as everyone knows, with enterprise, with governing council members over the last couple of years. So it's pretty much the same thing. However, now I have the remit to put a structure in place around how we activate not just governing council members, but their peers across the world. The Hashgraph Innovation Program, as I said, has been running for some time, for not just for startups. The way that it was set up was to have tiers of startup and then enterprise and government use cases. So we're just taking some notes from that. We're resizing it and restructuring it so that we can lane the enterprise use cases into the Hashgraph Enterprise Program. We were also taking on board a lot of the project pipeline that was coming through the Corporate Utilization Committee. So the Governing Council has these committees, and one of those is Corporate Utilization Committee, which is an amazing forum, not just of Governing Council members, but an extended group of enterprise focused on building different use cases and sharing notes and collaborating and showcasing what they're doing. And that is a forum has been a forum for driving the enterprise acceleration program as a kind of governance committee over those use cases and the projects and the funding that they can get. All of that has now come to me at the Hashgraph Association. CorpCom will still sit and still serve that purpose, but in terms of delivery support and delivery funding, that's now within the Hashgraph Association. So we've moved some of those projects over, some of the ones that are in flight. There's a long project pipeline that we've got to kind of shape and form into this new approach. And there's a lot more banging on the door as well. So I've got my work cut out for me. We're building a team to support, a team of project managers and architects and analysts that will support that. And we're also building a network of systems integration partners to help us scale. We're not going to deliver everything ourselves. We're going to provide a framework within which delivery can scale. And the SI partners will be trained, so their engineers will be trained to use Hedera and certified. So they'll have invested, we've got quite a few of these already, who have been working with Hedera on various things, but we're going to formalize all that. So we've got a wide range of partners who provide a channel to their own clients as well as organizations that we can provide projects to where they don't have a kind of development capability. And through this kind of structured approach, enterprise agile, as consultants like to call it, we've got a way of delivering in a fast and iterative way with trained partners and funding to get them all the way to proof of concept. The other key thing here is that it has to have an enterprise fit. So there's a lot of wheels that are spun in innovation labs, sort of technology for technology's sake. I'm very keen to ensure that all of these enterprises that are being activated and enabled have use cases which align with their own strategies and have business sponsors, because that will provide the bridge between the delivery of a proof of concept and production and true change. So a lot of things to do, but we've started on the right foot and at pace, and I'm very, very excited about what the next few months holds.
Well, Rob, you're an absolute pit bull, so whatever you put your mind to, I'm sure is going to get accomplished. But let's shift gears a little bit, because you're a pretty adventurous guy. You call you Sharky Rob because you swim with sharks, but it also sounds like you have something you're doing personally over the next few weeks that's pretty exciting. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Oh yeah, well, I'm going to be away for 2 weeks from Saturday, going to Everest Base Camp. It's not summiting, but it's getting to base camp. My good friend, who's my dive buddy for many years and watched my back while I was photographing sharks, can no longer dive, so he's turned to trekking and mountaineering. And called me up a couple of months ago and said, "I'm doing Everest Base Camp. Do you fancy coming?" So how can you say no? So yeah,
Exactly.
I fly to Kathmandu on Saturday. I'll be taking the t-shirts, so there'll be plenty of photo opportunities in front of Everest and up the trail there. So as soon as I get some connectivity, you'll see a stream of images that are Hedera related, no doubt.
Well, good stuff. I just want to know, how many of these episodes are we going to miss? Two? Okay. Not so bad. Not so bad. So we missed two. I'll try to find some people to fill in. It'll be some tough shoes to fill. But Rob, thank you so much for swinging by, and we'll see you in 3 weeks.
My pleasure. See you soon, Brandon. Bye.
So Zep, of course, Rob was talking about the Web3 program put on by Google. What are your thoughts on that? We didn't get a chance to cover it so far.
Yeah, so that was another big news piece for us last week. Google governing council member, Google Cloud making their bets on DLT alongside, we've seen Amazon do the same, but this is the big commit. This is a bigger commit than we've seen from Amazon Web Services. This is Google really going sort of all in on this new technology, understanding the value and choosing actors that it thinks can best represent that value. So within this sort of conglomerate of different teams, you've got Hedera, you've got Aptos, you've got Solana, and a few others. And so when I look at this, I think that their bet on sort of the more institutional side of their Web3 startup program, to me, it's Hedera. They understand the robust nature of Hedera. They understand the robust nature of its governing council and Hashgraph. They were one of their first steps into Web3 was through us, and they've seen more and more companies join alongside them. So for them, I believe that we're sort of the institutional play there, and the other more Web3 native companies are also there to facilitate the more Web3 centric use cases that aren't necessarily high scale, high throughput. That's my kind of understanding of it. But notably, although there have been other networks there with us, we do have an absence of teams like Avalanche, who actually, they're part of the AWS team or part of the startup there. But we saw other key competitors, or at least in my opinion, we didn't see Algorand and other teams there. So I think this has been, like I said, if Algorand was there with us, maybe that would be two bets on institutional side of Web3. But to see us alone there, I think is a really positive indicator for us. And we've got great representation internally from the foundation to help manage that relationship. They said specifically themselves that they want to create global world-class dApps. And of course, Hedera and the council is there to equally facilitate that. So very exciting indeed.
I will say that down there at Consensus, there was really good representation from Hedera builders. And they were at the Google events when they were launching this and really pushing forward some of the things that are being built on Hedera. So that was good to see. There are two different tiers that they're accepting, and they want builders, right? They need you as much as you need them. So certainly try to apply if you think you could leverage some of Google's tools. So the eligibility requirement for the lower tier is a Web3 project and startups not yet funded by an institutional investor or foundation, founded within the last 5 years, and they haven't received Google Cloud credits beyond the free trial. So what you'll get is up to $2,000 in Google Cloud credits, valid for 2 years, and 12 months free of Google Workspace Business Plus. The second tier for more established startups, the eligibility requirements are Web3 projects and startups that have funded, including equity, tokens, NFT token fundraising, or grant from blockchain foundations, or from a seed or Series A round. They need to be founded within the last 10 years and have not yet received more than $4,000 in Google Cloud credits. Now, they will receive up to $200,000 in Google Cloud credits, $12,000 in Google Cloud Enhanced support, and again, 12 months free of that Google Workspace Business Plus. So it is certainly worth participating. And of course, going back to Rob, he joined the Swiss Hashgraph Association and is really starting to ramp up there. But there's been another addition there. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so we had Mr. Heran Shah join the Hashgraph team as Executive Director of Business Development. And so Mr. Shah was the former head of global sales at IBM, of course, governing council member, and of course, a big part of the global sort of tech infrastructure. And I think what's particularly exciting about this is that this is another governing council member. Of course, he's not there anymore, but it shows that he was there. He saw the genius of Hedera early on, and now he's decided that having once been part of that council, part of that team, he wants to join further into our ecosystem to push what he thinks is the best version of this technology, i.e. distributed ledger technology. So he actually came out and said, happy to join the Hashgraph Association team and become part of the Hedera family. IoT, i.e. the Internet of Things, blockchain, and AI are three of the most disruptive technologies of our time. They are all rapidly evolving and have the potential to transform many industries and aspects of our lives. The reliability of data on which AI models depend and the outcomes generated by AI largely depend on secure, transparent, and tamper-proof transactions. This is where blockchain, a distributed ledger technology, plays a vital role. This is an ex-IBM top dog coming out talking about the intersection between AI and blockchain, and also saying that Hedera is sort of the best version for that, hence why he wanted to join the association. We've seen this AI narrative within Web3. Of course, AI is a massive innovation, and to see that Mr. Shah believes that Hedera can play an important role of securing and enabling that technology further, I think is very, very bullish for us. And of course, he's joining a world-class team at the association alongside people like Rob Allen. The future of the Hashgraph Association, I think, is looking very, very strong. And of course, that means the Hedera network itself. So a great addition to the team there.
Well, when I think about, all of these smart and capable people pulling in the same direction, that's when amazing things can happen. So it is exciting to see him join the team. Another very capable person is Mei Chan of Hashpack, and I talked to her down a consensus, but they had some more things that they wanted to get out there. So listen to what Mei had to say. May, we just talked down a consensus, but there's always more to cover. You're consistently adding new features to Hashpack. What's your strategy for Hashpack expansion?
Yeah, our strategy is actually pretty simple. We always listen to the community, and so the community drives what we build. We're always in the mindset of solving real problems that people have. And then we're also very agile. We iterate and we adapt on what we're building so that we basically solve what we need to and not just build something for the sake of building things. Just our track record of everything that we built in the past, it was all based around some kind of pain point that we saw in the community. So like there is the NFT gallery that we put out and the NFT metadata standard that we put out. And that was because there was a lot of hype around NFTs, but there wasn't an easy way to use them and send them. We built secure trade because people were sending their NFTs, but then people started making NFTs with fallback fees and they couldn't send them. So we had to make something that helped them up there. We built Hash Connect because there was no signing library on Hedera. And after we built Hash Connect, everything followed. We had the NFT marketplaces take off and then DEXs and everything like that. So like DeFi happened because we solved a very critical problem. And that's basically how we go about things. So like the mission statement for Hashpack from day one was to reduce friction for people and companies building in the space and driving adoption of Hedera and Web3.
Makes perfect sense. One of the things my partner Jesse at Twigital said from the very beginning, the aesthetics of Hashpack was perfect. He thinks you have a beautiful product, and that's kind of one of the things that we wanted to emulate as we came out with our product. But can you tell us a little bit more about your latest edition, the Hashpack Store?
Yeah, absolutely. We launched this last week, so it was live during the heat of Consensus 2023. And basically on the Monday, we launched it and we said we have 2 NFTs for sale as part of the commemoration of this feature. One was our free early adopter NFT, and one was a 500 HBAR early supporter NFT. And the idea was this is kind of like a stress test for our store, a kind of a beta test, as it were, where we're giving away free NFTs to the community to thank them for being part of our community so early on, and just as like a sentimental token. And same for the early supporter token, that's like a gold Hashpack. We basically wanted a way for people to give back to us if they felt like it and get a little bit something shiny in return. So that was the messaging around that. and everyone had 1 week to claim. So it stopped on May the 1st, and now it's done. The sale is over. We didn't mean for it to be like a major product that we sold. It was just part of the launch of the store. So around the store, it's not a marketplace, which people have asked me about. It is also not a launch pad. There's plenty of NFT marketplaces and NFT launch pads on Hedera, and we're not in the business of competing with them. That's really, we want to work with the community, and they've already built such amazing products in that space. So this is kind of a first party Hashpack store for now, where we're going to be selling a few things that are aligned with Hashpack and our new features that are coming out. It's kind of like a proof of concept that ties in with our larger strategy, which we haven't talked about, but I think that the community will be really excited about what we're going to present in the next few weeks, maybe few months. It's going to be cool.
Well, I can't wait to see it. May, it was great seeing you in person down at Consensus, and thank you for all that you do for the ecosystem through Hashpack.
Thank you so much.
Great to hear from May. The Hashpack itself is obviously a huge part of our community. And, you know, they cement this over and over again that they're a community first wallet. And seeing how they bolster our community and increase users within it has been fantastic. And there's no better testament to that than the fact that their free Hedera NFT that came out with the store is now the most owned NFT in the ecosystem, and also bolstered the amount of unique NFT holders by 24%. So just in one free NFT, they've increased our, unique NFT holders within our ecosystem by a quarter, which is just phenomenal. And that shows, again, how entrenched they are in the community, how far their outreach goes on social media, but also how strong they are as a team. And I'm very excited to see where the Hashpack store takes us, given that very early success there. So exciting times indeed.
Hashpack is a force. There's no question about that. And we are so proud of some of our small teams that are building out there. But we also have some things coming out with Enterprise. We had the Juicyverse come out this past week, right?
Yep. So the Juicyverse has landed. I believe they pushed it out over Consensus. It is, of course, the trademarked metaverse of Mars Wrigley, the biggest candy creator or provider or company in the world. And so this came from Alex Russman, the head of the Metaverse Fund. This was leveraging multiple partners. The first being Metaverse, who are, a big Metaverse project building on Hedera. They've got something called the Mall, which is the biggest virtual mall ever. It's the biggest virtual mall that exists. And they pulled in their contacts with Mars Wrigley. And so together, collectively, the foundation, Metaverse, and Mars have come together to create what I believe is the first instance of a metaverse for a big sort of candy supplier or sweet supplier, as we'd say in the UK. And so within this, not only can you sort of walk around a metaverse as you can with other platforms, but you can also mint NFTs directly onto Hedera from within the platform. And I think that's a really cool combination of different technologies there, different layers to their metaverse. And I'm excited to see this as a sort of an early test of what the metaverse might look like on our enterprises.
And is that, from what I understand, you can actually get coupons in there that you can use in stores, and they can get data from that. I'm talking about Mars can get data from that that can be really useful. We know how useful data can be on the internet. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of that progresses. All right, so the next thing I wanted to cover is Karate Combat. We've been talking about them for months, but now is when the rubber actually meets the road. On the 10th, they're going to be doing their token drop, or at least the information is going to come out on how you can participate. Right now, what you can do is go and put your email address in if you want to participate on Karate Combat's website. They also have a huge fight that's going to be coming up on May 20th. I'm going to try to make it down to that fight, and there's going to be other Hederians down there. So if you want to participate, go ahead and get in touch with me at the HBAR Bull, either on Telegram or on Twitter, and we'll see what we can do to get you involved. They're also involved with MakerDAO and Halborn, right?
Yeah, so I think, the important or the most exciting thing about this development is that this ecosystem funding, this VC funding, has come from people we haven't seen before into our ecosystem. And there's a correlation between VCs entering an ecosystem and, of course, them seeing value in it. And that value can be attributed to narratives, it can be attributed to tech, it can just be attributed to great use cases. And this is the first time we've seen a real, I think, retail use case, other than, of course, Galaxy, but another one of this sort of scale in the more sort of metaverse side of things, or the more sports league side of things, getting this kind of investment. And I think to see more and more VC coming in, that's a powerful thing for us to leverage moving forwards. And it also attracts other builders from other ecosystems to really get involved here once they feel comfortable that the top dogs are also comfortable deploying capital here. So I would like to see, this could be the early stages of more VC coming in. I'd like to see the BD team be able to use this as sort of, a flagship. The Delphi Digital, MakerDAO, et cetera, non-native to Hedera. They've seen this value. This is why they've seen this value. This is the narrative they're following. Come and join us and build with other applications as well. So I think, to have that outside funding was great. And of course, Karate Combat, I think they're off to a very strong start already.
Yeah, it's a compelling sports league and a business, so I'm really excited to see what comes out of it. All right, let's take one of our hard left turns. We'll get into ReFi. There was some stuff that came out of the World Economic Forum. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so of course, the World Economic Forum, love them or hate them, they have a huge amount of influence, whether that's over policy, over businesses, organizations. They work with some of the biggest companies and organizations in the world to achieve certain ends. And to have had the Hedera Guardian, i.e. the core piece of infrastructure that holds our ReFi ecosystem, featured in their Scaling Climate Action report or white paper, I don't think that can be sort of understated. Of course, climate finance is a big thing. Climate action is a big thing, but they've been plagued with inefficiencies. And DLT has come out of here and said, we can make these markets far more efficient. And so far, we've seen different people adopting that and different people looking into that. But to have had this seal of approval from as high up as the WEF, you just got to look at the actors at Davos to understand what that means, is a massive, massive green flag for this infrastructure. And, talking to Wes, talking to the team at the CIF, there is just a pipeline of different events that are going to happen within their ecosystem that are truly going to position Hedera at the front of the climate market, front of climate action within DLT, but I think also outside of that echo chamber. The WEF doubling down there is massive, and I'm excited to see whatever different organizations, whatever different partners they have, reading that to understand more about us, more about our ecosystem, and more about Hedera at the very fundamental part of that.
One of the things that I did notice at Consensus, there were a lot of people that were interested in ReFi, from Pepsi, talking about microplastics, to governments. They saw what we had built as far as the entire ecosystem, and they knew that we were on the right track. So that was really good to see. Before we move on to network analysis, we also had some information come out about Solid World. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Solid World were announced at Davos 2023. Another piece of our ReFi ecosystem. They've basically set out to enable carbon forwarding on Hedera, and that meaning to get early stage investment with lower risk to these teams that are building, that desperately need cash, but might take 5 or 10 years to actually generate the revenue to return the investors their money. So they've been setting up sort of carbon financing pools and all sorts of different things, but they came out this week with CRISP, which is an acronym for Carbon Risk Identification and Scoring Principles Framework. And so this is going to be a core part of their risk analysis, of their platform, to enable these early stage carbon products to receive funding. And this is sort of the first instance of that in development. So really exciting to see what they're doing there. And of course, we know that the ReFi ecosystem is showing no signs of slowing down and only speeding up. So great to see them already bringing stuff to the surface there.
And speaking of not slowing down, let's get into some network analysis. So over the past 24 hours, we've had 82 million transactions on the Hedera network. We are averaging over 952 transactions per second. I know when we first made that step change up, we were, 600-700 transactions per second. Now we're up to 950. So it's only accelerating. I actually put a tweet out the other day and it got a lot of traction, just trying to highlight what the usage was. But we're also getting some recognition from some outside sources. We saw on Crypto Quarterly that they showed HBAR in that #1 spot. And what's even more interesting is that Hedera is bringing these transactions, again, with a value add use case outside of speculation in a completely different industry. Any thoughts on our acceleration as far as transaction volumes up?
I mean, like you said earlier on, we were sort of averaging at about 12 TPS before this sort of set function. I think it was sort of anywhere between sort of 12 and 13, fluctuating between, which already pretty much put us at the top. That was above most of our competitors. I think XLM, Stellar was a close competitor, and Solana is a difficult one to gauge. But we were already with, before the massive use case that was Atma, we had different platforms, different applications within the ecosystem already plugging away, already keeping us competitive within the realm of layer ones and layer twos. But this is 1,000 TPS, I think, was sustained for a few hours, which, like you said, has put us now at the highest TPS we've ever had over the course of 24 hours. And it just doesn't seem to be any chance of slowing down or signs of slowing down. Of course, it will come back down between the sort of range we're in, but to see that staggering amount of TPS sustained with the, I believe, time to consensus to under 5 seconds, and then for Mance to be saying that this is sort of the first drop in the ocean, I believe he said in the King Solomon interview, we're at the first time that we've seen a large-scale enterprise solution driving real-world value deployed on DLT, and of course, it's going to be the first of many. So yeah, great to see that.
And like you said, the time to consensus is staying down, still well under 5 seconds, so that's great to see. We've also had some good account growth this week, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, we're up, 325% on the week. So we're nearly touching 70,000 accounts generated in the last week, which is, we were only just celebrating crossing 2 million accounts, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe even a week and a half ago, and now we're nearly at 2,100,000. I don't know where those accounts are coming from. Maybe we can get some more insight next week. We're leading in TPS across the industry, but it's great to see more users coming in and recognizing that value of Hedera.
Yeah, no question about that. Moving down to our fungible tokens, we see Zero, we see Wrapped HBAR, Sauce Dovu, HeliSwap, HSuite, all in the top 10, USDC as well. But we also had some information come out about our first meme coin to take off, Grelf. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Grelf went cross-chain through Hashport. There are multiple layer ones now, I believe. I think they're now integrated into Pangolin Index, or the first instance of Pangolin that we have on Hedera. So I'd like to think, like Creed said, like Warlock said, their ambition through this coin was to introduce other people into our network, and for them to be able to go cross-chain, get people intrigued. Grelf is obviously a very interesting character. He makes you want to check out a bit more. But if they then look at where he came from and then come over to Hedera and test out that RDEXs themselves, hopefully they'll see that the efficiencies of Hedera are worth sticking around for. And so, yeah, that was the ambition of Warlock, and it's great to see that slowly sort of happening.
And moving on down to our NFTs, we see ElfU is always in there. We have HBAR Pandas, we have Earthlings making a showing. We have a few of our naming services. Is there anything else you'd like to cover as far as NFTs there, Zep?
So I think just reiterating the success of the Hashpack Store, I think that was the really big news this week. 1 quarter, increasing by a quarter our amount of unique NFT holders. And then we've also actually got Dead Pixels onesies coming out. So if you are a lucky token holder, you can go to their page now and see if you're eligible for the onesies. And the onesies are very exclusive, so I'd suggest checking out if you own one.
All right, Zep, so let's go ahead and get into some DeFi. Looking at DeFi Llama, not including Stater liquid staking, we have $31 million total value locked. Just over $20 million of that is on SaucerSwap, so a pretty comfortable lead there. $8.2 million on Pangolin, and HeliSwap dipped again to $2.5 million. Congratulations to SaucerSwap for passing 1 million swaps on CoinMarketCap. The farming rewards on some of SaucerSwap's popular trading pairs are 14% on HBAR HBAR-X, 31% on HBAR Sauce, and 36% on HBAR USDC. Over on Pangolin, we have a return of 22% on HBAR HBAR-X, 77% on HBAR USDC, and 250% on HBAR PBAR. Moving over to the crypto and HBAR market, first looking at the broader markets, the Federal Reserve increased interest rates by 0.25%, which was in line with expectations, so the market mainly shrugged it off. Crypto fell early in the week but has since recovered, helped by a boost in risk assets following a stronger than expected jobs report. I actually would have expected that to be a good news is bad news scenario, but the numbers moderated a bit, which might give the Fed cover pausing hikes, which would help risk assets, including stocks and crypto. Bitcoin is up about 2.7% on the day and is flat on the week. In comparison, HBAR has struggled, being down 7% on the week and up 1% on the day, and is now sitting at about 5.8 cents. That said, I would expect that if Bitcoin and ETH can hold their late week gains, we could see a bump this weekend. 5.8 cents is a key level, so the battle between the bulls and the bears is definitely on. If we stay above 5.8 cents, 6.4 cents would be my target for the first area of resistance, and 5.5 cents should offer support if we break below. All right, Zeb, that's pretty much all we have. Is there anything else you'd like to cover?
I mean, we've covered the last 2 weeks of news here, and there's been a huge amount. Again, on the enterprise side with Google Cloud, with Nilmini taking on Congress, or at least part of the US government, and even hearing, I think they said, what was it, that Hedera is a hit coin. When you compare that to some of the companies that have been stifled recently, at least in the short term, like Algorand, it is a seismic difference to what's being said from a congressman about Hedera to other tokens. And of course, that's not to say we're in the safe zone at all, but it's great to know that we have that representation on the inside. Of course, we're working for the summit on democracy with the White House and so on. It's like we've got our feet firmly in the door there. We're working with the World Economic Forum on things like sustainability. It seems that Hedera really is shoulder to shoulder with the giants. And that's on the enterprise side of stuff. And then, of course, you've got Mr. Shah joining the Hashgraph Association. But then when you look at retail, you've got Hashpack, again, making massive numbers. You've got the investment coming in from outside of the ecosystem into karate combat, and so on and so forth. It's like we're getting two things at once. And we know, as we say time and time again, that institutional adoption is the sea that will rise all ships, or the tide that will rise all boats. And I think really, as our ecosystem matures, as people understand the value that's being created here, as the TPS continues to go up, as the Messari reports reiterate that's only going to become more clear, and we're only going to become more of a stable solution for builders across the ecosystem. So for me, just tons of growth as reflected by Messari, but also across every component of our ecosystem, and a big week, definitely.
It's been a big couple weeks, that's for sure. I was really impressed with what I saw down at Consensus last week. Looking forward to everything Karate Combat has coming up. Certainly sign up for that airdrop that they have coming out. There's going to be more information coming out on the 10th. But the only other thing that I wanted to show is I have some bonus footage of Earthlings, so check that out as we close.